Welcome to Living in the Matrix. I'm Jonathan, and I'm left of center.
And I'm Rich, and I tend to lean a little bit more to the right. But the bottom line is together we try to look for the balance of what it means to be human in today's world.
Okay, let's get started, everybody. This is Jonathan with Living in the Matrix. I'm here with my co-host, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hey, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Looking forward to an amazing, grateful week coming up,
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. I completely forgot that this is Christmas week. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. I have a bunch of friends who are just celebrating Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. So if you're having holidays, may it be blessed and joyous. So today we have a guest, a friend of mine named Brett Barlow. Brett and I met on Facebook about 7 years ago, and he is the funniest man I have ever met. And because he has zero filter, he basically says what he wants, but he owns it. And that's what I love about him is that he says what he wants, but he believes in what he says. And so welcome, Brett. Thanks for coming to the show.
I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad you guys are having me on, and I appreciate your words. That they mean a lot to me. I was like I said, one night I was just sitting there and I contemplating. I do that a lot. Like at nighttime, my wife will go in the bedroom and go to sleep, and I just sit up in my chair and in silence, and I just contemplate. And I was sitting there and I think about things, and I remember you had a podcast, and I was thinking about my near-death experience because I think about it all the time. Not all the time. It's not like I'm obsessed
I'm
with
sure
it.
it's encapsulating into your life.
For sure. And I was like, gosh, it's like I really want to share my story. It's like my family and friends know, but I'm sure there can't be a person out there alive that isn't curious. What's it like? And I've actually been there. And you want me to just jump into the story?
Yeah, so why don't you set it up and start wherever you want that you think is relevant to telling the story, if when it happened or before, however you want to set it up, but dive in.
Okay. So it happened in Scottsdale, Arizona. So me and my sister are really close. We're the only two siblings. She's the only sibling I have. And we get together every 3 months. They come up. I live in Reno. She lives in Scottsdale. And they'll come up here. 3 months later, we go down there. Just weekend trips. My wife Leslie and my sister and brother-in-law, the four of us are like they're like the three most important people to me. It's like the four of us just click, and my brother-in-law is like a brother to me. I mean, it's like that's all how I think about it. Anyway, so we're down in Scottsdale, and when we go down there, it's just chill. We relax. We go out to lunch. We barbecue. Well, this day was a Saturday, and there was a tequila festival in old Scottsdale during the day.
If you ever meet Brett, know that he loves alcohol. Like tequila sounds like more than anybody I've ever met in my life. Like you drink a massive, but you're very sane about it.
Well, the thing is I like to say I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just always down to drink.
Right. Yeah, you love to drink. It's not that you want to be an alcoholic and you're running from all your problems. You just love to drink. Yes.
Yes. So we've been at this tequila festival during the day, and we get home from that, a little buzzed from it, nothing major. And then we kind of roll into the evening and beers, and we barbecued. And anyway, just nice evening, all by this time, it's probably like 9 o'clock at night, and we're all feeling comfortable. We're all feeling at ease, if you know what I mean. And so we get in their hot tub, and every house in Scottsdale has a swimming pool, most of them with hot tubs. And it's like a hot tub, and the pool's right next to it with a little waterfall that goes over. And we're sitting in there, and when you get too hot, you kind of just fall out of the hot tub into the pool and cool off. Well, my sister is saying it's like well, it's 59 degrees in there right now. You don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go in. That's cool. They're like, come on, just go in. I'm like, all right, I'll go in. So I'm buzzed, and so I fall over the side of the hot tub into the pool like I've done 1,000 times because I've been down there, so many times. And
were you expecting cold, or were you expecting it to
59.
be
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, I was expecting cold, and but I'm like, whatever. It's like it'll be momentary and I'll cool off.
Sure.
Well, I fall into the hot tub and or fall into the pool from the hot tub, and I hit my head on the bottom of the pool, and all I thought to myself was, that really hurt. But that was it. It didn't knock me unconscious. I'm just like, ouch, that hurt. And then after I hit my head, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't move. And I float up to the top, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't move. And I can hear.
Could you move your head?
That's all I could do is move my head. And I can hear my sister and brother-in-law and Leslie in the hot tub, chattering at me. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't move. And then all of a sudden it sunk into me. It's like, I'm going to die. There wasn't a doubt in my mind. I'm going to die because I'm a jackass, and they're going to think I'm just joking around because they said the water was cold, and I'm like, all I could move was my head. So I start shaking my head back and forth, trying to get their attention. And I can hear them, so it's like, oh, he's just kidding. And all of a sudden, the realization and the panic, I'm going to fucking die. And it's like, I knew it. And I'm just like, oh my God. The fear is beyond imagination. To be conscious and know that you're going to die. And it was, the fear was so intense. I mean, beyond imagination. And I just shaking my head before I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I can literally feel myself crying with my face underwater. And I'm like, I'm going to die. And I was just.
Were you did you feel like you were paralyzed at that point? Or was that?
I was paralyzed.
You were? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you were conscious that you were paralyzed, and that's what brought on the panic. Like you couldn't do anything about it. Okay.
Yes. Because it's like, I'm like, they're not going to get in to help me because I'm a jackass and they're going to think I'm joking. And that's exactly what happened. And I don't know for how long it was like that. I mean, time kind of through this whole process, I don't think it was very long. But the fear was, it's like, even when I think about the situation, I can literally take myself back there and feel the emotion. So if I feel like I'm getting choked up, it's because it's like, it was that intense. It's like telling the story. It takes me back to that. And I can almost feel, it's like, I have moments in my day, just out of the blue, I'll have a flashback of that, and I'm just like, oh God. I'm just like, that's how terrifying it was, and so I'm just terrified beyond words. I'm gonna die. And then all of a sudden, it was like, the best way to explain it is like, let's say there's a whiteboard that has writing all over it. You're just, whatever, just covered with writing. It's like someone took an eraser and wiped the whiteboard clean. And all of a sudden, all the fear, all the panic, all of it just disappeared. And I was in this state of, the best way to describe it is that Bible verse from Philippians, the peace that surpasses all understanding. And it's like every worry, every guilt, every anxiety, everything that it was just gone. I was just in this undescribable state of peace. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see a white light. My dogs that have passed didn't come jumping into my arms. There was no pearly gates. But I was just in this extreme. It's like, it's hard. I can't describe it.
Do your best to describe it. What can you describe?
That's the best way to put it. I was just, it was dark. I mean, it's not like I didn't see anything.
But you had a sense of peace. That sounds like the dominating factor.
I had this sense of peace, again, that surpasses all understanding. It's like I can't. It's like you can't imagine the peace I was in. It was just like nothing mattered. Literally, I had this. There wasn't really even thoughts. It was just this sense of, and not nothing matters, but it's like nothing matters, and not in a bad way. Not like things on.
Meaning it's not your responsibility. I think that's what, so Rich and I have interviewed previous people who have been through an experience like that. And it's the overwhelming majority of the people, because I've studied near death for quite a long time, and the overwhelming majority of people who experience near death have a overwhelmingly good experience. And that's what it sounds like you were.
Weird.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, I apologize. Let's pause here for a second.
Yeah, you're
I
fine.
can hear Rich in the background. We'll
Yeah,
keep
you're
this.
fine.
You okay?
I'm loving
Everything
it.
okay, bro? You're freezing up. Are you okay? Oh, there you are. Okay, your screen is freezing. I don't know if I have a bad connection. Okay, sorry, Brett. Let's jump back in. Was your experience overwhelmingly positive?
Yes and no. Yeah, yes, in the sense that the state of peace I was in was so incredible that just like with the fear of knowing I was going to die, it was just as incredible, but just the opposite end. And so, yes, in that sense, um, I mean, like I said, I just can't say it enough.
Mm-hmm.
The state of peace I was in, it was like I there weren't even thoughts. I was just, it's like nothing mattered. Everything that had ever bothered me in my life meant nothing. It's like, I mean, it meant nothing. It's like, it was like this realization of don't sweat the small stuff, but on a huge scale. It's like everything that it ever bothered me, it didn't matter. It's like nothing mattered. I was just so at peace. It was like, and I had this feeling like, I mean, like this lightness. It's like life, because life can be very heavy. Life can feel very heavy, and especially with our physical bodies, it can feel so heavy sometimes. And it was all the heaviness was gone, and I was just in this complete state of peace. It's like sometimes I'm at a loss for words to describe it, but it was just it was incredible, and I just remember thinking the only thought I had was actually this was before I actually died, but while I was drowning, the only I felt bad for my sister and my brother-in-law and my wife because I knew I was going to die and they're going to have to live with it. And that's gonna haunt them for the rest of their lives, and that made me really, really sad. But
especially because they were literally right there, and you understand in the context of the situation, it was a joke. They're probably thinking, okay, we're not going to play his game, and they don't understand that that's not really the game you're playing, but they think it is, and you're aware of that. Like you can see the pain all around what's going to happen because like they didn't rescue you when they could have. And that was the irony of the event. It's like that's a hard. So what happened at that point? Like, did you stay there for a while? How long did it feel like?
It felt like it only felt like minutes, but and after talk, well, let me continue on. Let me just tell you. I'll tell you the rest of the story.
Okay, go ahead.
I know the focus of the story is what did I experience while I was.
We'll come back to that. Yeah, go ahead and finish the story, and we'll come back to that.
So, I'm in this complete state of peace, and then the next thing I know, I look up and I'm looking at my wife and my sister, and I guess this is because it had been terrifying for them as well. but finally my brother-in-law got in the pool and pulled me out, and my face was blue, my stomach was completely just huge because of all the water, and my sister had run in to grab the phone, and she came running out, and like I said, Leslie was giving me mouth to mouth, and my sister was pumping on my chest, and they brought me back. And
oh wow!
So the next thing I remember is
Did you
just
spit out the water?
Were you rolling over the side and throwing up all of the water?
Got it.
And so the temporary paralysis had somewhat subsided because I turned this way, and then next thing I know, the paramedics are there. Part of the story that is so positive for me is, so anyway, they take me to the hospital in Scottsdale.
Let me ask you a detailed question, Brett, though. From the point you rose to the surface to the point where you woke up, how long was that to them?
My sister said it was probably no more than 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was probably about 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, I can't stress that enough. It's like, it's not, it wasn't like near death experiences like I've heard or read about or you hear about. It wasn't anything like that. I can't stress enough the state of peace I was in. It was just, I mean, again, beyond words. But so anyway, they take me to the hospital in Scottsdale, and here's the part of the story that is was encouraging in hindsight. I mean, it was a blur, kind of. But so I'm in the emergency room, and by the time we got there, I had full feeling back in my arms and legs. And
what's your mental state as you're sitting there?
Confused.
Okay.
To go to experience the extreme fear, to experiencing the extreme peace, and being a little bit intoxicated on top of it. All together, it was just kind of confused. I remember crying in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, because at that point I still didn't have full feeling in my arms and legs, but I could anyway, I remember crying and they're asking the paramedic if I'm going to be okay, and he didn't answer me. Anyway, I'm in the emergency room, and I have feeling back, and they took me in for an MRI on my neck, and they'd given me some fentanyl because I was in a lot of pain in my shoulders and neck, and so after the MRI, the neurosurgeon comes in and he says, when you leave here, go directly to the casino and gamble everything you have. He says, it is a miracle that you're not dead or at the very least paralyzed. He goes, there is nothing between your top two vertebrae. There is no cartilage whatsoever. He goes, you should be dead. I mean, he used the word miracle. And so that kind of, again, the whole situation and the fentanyl, I was just kind of, okay, I heard what he said, but I didn't grab the depth of it until I could think about it down the road. But then the next day, so they checked me into the hospital. They weren't going to let me leave. They wanted to do surgery in Scottsdale, and they wouldn't let me out until I had an appointment with a neurosurgeon in Reno.
Well, what was the actual injury? Was
my top two vertebrae in the top of my neck collapsed together.
Breast. Okay.
Yeah. And but for whatever reason, for what the surgeon says a miracle, they uncollapsed. But then the next day, a different neurosurgeon comes in. They admit me to the hospital, and he again said, "It's a miracle that you're here."
What should happen when they do collapse? Does that sever your spine and kill you?
The reason I should have died is because what happens is that usually you lose control of your diaphragm and you suffocate.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's what the surgeon said to me. He goes is that your diaphragm becomes paralyzed and you suffocate. And so, but then he used the word miracle. It's a miracle you're here. And to hear two doctors use the word miracle, doctors don't use that word lightly. And
no, they don't.
No, and so they wouldn't let me. So they wouldn't let me leave until I had an appointment with a neurosurgeon up here. And so I was in the hospital there for 4 days. And it's kind of funny when Leslie got a hold of my best friend here in Reno, and he's got a neighbor that's a neurosurgeon here in town. Anyway, I got an appointment set up, so they were going to let me leave the hospital. Otherwise, they were going to just do the surgery there. But when I left, they had me on a leash. Leslie had to walk me out on a leash because they said it's like if you fall forward and hit your head, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking out of the hospital on a leash. But then I get back here and met with the neurosurgeon the day after. So this is like 5 days after. And he did a new MRI. And again, without even talking to the doctors in Scottsdale, he comes in and says, "It's a miracle that you're sitting in front of me." He goes, you should be dead, if not, or at least paralyzed. And so having three different scientists, if you will, use the word miracle, really made me think.
Like God is trying to tell you something, Brett.
Is it a miracle? It's like, is it a miracle? And I don't know. It's retelling the story. It's really heavy. But it added.
Well, let me ask you a question here, okay? Because you approached us and said, "I'd love to share my story." Part of those kind of experiences are typically because people are trying to process things. What's going on inside that now that you're telling it? What does it mean to you to kind of hear this story again and really process it?
I feel comfort. It's like I was raised Catholic, and I do have a strong Christian belief. I'm not religious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you're not.
I'm definitely spiritual.
Yes, you are.
Definitely spiritual. So, it gave me a sense of. It strengthened my faith in one sense, but then gave me some doubt in another. The doctors using the word miracle, and the fact that I am still alive and not paralyzed, and
you made a full recovery.
Yeah, I had surgery, and they fused the two top vertebrae, and so it's like that'll never be an issue again.
You're all good.
Yeah, but but then there's part of me. It's like, well, what if? Because I what if a lot. What if that? Sit there, think about it. It's like, why didn't I see Jesus? Why didn't I see a white light? Why didn't my dog's there? Why was I just in this black space? It's like, even though I was completely at peace, it's like, what if that's all there is? It's just like, okay, lights out. We're just really intelligent insects, and any faith I have about something isn't real. But so it's like that's always just like, it's like you don't know for sure. It's like because you didn't experience anything like you imagined you would experience when you die. It's like when I think all of us imagine what the stories we read or the movies we watch or whatever. It's like that's kind of imprinted in us that's going to be your experience. And so there's this tiny voice that says, well, what if what you experience is all there is? But then I had this conversation with myself in my head, and I'm like, well, God knew it wasn't my time. So these are the two voices talking in my head. The one says that. The second one is like, well, God knew it wasn't my time, so He's not going to show me the glory of heaven. And because if He showed me the glory of heaven, maybe I really wouldn't want to come back. And so He's like, I'm not going to.
What do you mean by the glory of heaven? Like, what's in your mind when you say that?
When I say the glory of heaven, I go back to thinking of um, having some type of visual, some light. It's like I do have these perceptions of I am going to meet Jesus. I do have these perceptions of I'm going to see my dogs that have been gone. I'm going to see my parents. It's like I have these. It's like that's just what my brain expected, and it wasn't what I expected. And so I have this conversation. The two voices we all have in our heads all the time, and it's like we all do it. It's like they're just talking to each other back and forth, and but that's where the little bit of doubt comes in. It's like, what if what I did experience is that's it? It's just lights out, and
But let me stop you real quick and ask, in hindsight, how long has it been? How long ago was it?
Almost 3 years.
Okay, so 3 years you've got to sit with it. What was the value of the feeling of peace? Because that's a pretty profound experience that I don't think most human beings really ever get to that degree. That's a rare experience.
I can tell you that unless you've had a near-death experience like I had, it's like you can't you can't imagine how the peace, the depth of the peace that was there. I don't know what word to use. It's like you can't even imagine it.
Like words, we talk about words on this show a lot. Like in the beginning was the word, and the reason is because word is the packet of information that we communicate between each other. So it's very powerful to be able to communicate. The problem is when we talk about things like the kingdom of God or heaven or near death and what that space looks like, even the unified field in quantum physics, it's impossible to describe because words cannot do it justice ever.
Exactly. Language is so limited. Language is so limited. It's like, I mean, it is. It's just the words. There's for me. There's lots of things that are beyond words. But this was, like I said, it was such an intense thing. Again,
so let me ask you a question there, because that's an important point. Do you feel at that moment that it was in your head an awareness of peace, or was it a sensation of peace?
Oh no, it was a sensation. It wasn't there wasn't any thoughts. I mean, it's like literally I didn't have any thoughts. It's like I was just in this state of absolute peace, and it's like it was almost like I wasn't even me anymore. It was just like I was just I was just in this state of peace. Again, I don't have the words to say it, but it's like it wasn't even me. It's like nothing mattered, but it was the peace was so intense, and for three years, kind of thinking about this, it's like I told you how it strengthened my faith in the sense that I really think when I think about that, it's like I don't think God doesn't jump into our lives and make changes, but I think there are instances in life where every once in a while he'll just put his finger in a situation and say and just it's like I have this feeling like God's finger touched my neck, and it's like, no, not today. And it's like there's part of me that really thinks that, and it's like I'm not done here. It's like my job isn't over.
So do you find those words, Brett, to be shameful or empowering?
Empowering.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it was like, hey, I want to show you something.
Yeah.
And
it's like I felt like I have more purpose. Not that I didn't have purpose before, but I guess it might be along the lines of the lone survivor of a plane crash. It's like, why me? It's kind of that feeling. And but then when I think about the other side that I was talking about, where I didn't have the experiences like I thought it wasn't like I thought it would be or imagined it would be. And then I think, well, what if it is just at the end of the day it's just lights out, and then you just don't exist any longer. And I think to myself, it's like I don't think that's the case. I don't believe that's the case. But if that is the case, I'm okay with it. I mean, because I was at peace. And I don't know, it was Aristotle or Socrates. I remember one of the philosophy classes that talks about. They said if the afterworld doesn't exist, and in the end of my life is just an eternal nap, I'm okay with it. Obviously, atheists, different religions. Everybody's got something else different to believe. Um, I I want people to know that in the end, whether you're correct in your faith or not, you're still going to be at peace. You know, and so life isn't something to be afraid of. It's like that, and also don't let life don't let life weigh you down, because in the end, it doesn't matter when you're dead. It doesn't matter either way. Whether you go to heaven, you go to hell, or you're just worm food. In the end, at the end of your life, the shit that bothers you, the things you worry about, they don't matter. It doesn't. In fact, I use that memory of like when I'm in a really stressful situation or a circumstance in my life. I can take myself back to that, and it's like, well, and this sounds morbid, but I literally say to myself, "Don't sweat it. Someday you're going to be dead." And it's like, so it's like I know it sounds morbid, but it's true. It's like just for people that haven't had, well, most people, I want it to be a message of encouragement, and maybe some other people, maybe you can give some other people some peace. Um, it's it was so intense. I mean, it's I just wanted to I want to share with people. I want to share with people that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing.
Brett, how do you think this has changed your life over the last 3 years?
Definitely in a positive way, in the sense that, like I said, it's like I do have a better realization that it just doesn't matter, and it's like, so I can live my life with less stress or anxiety. Doesn't mean I don't get stressed or have anxiety, and I don't let my it's like my I have a pretty.
The Broncos are in the shitter this year.
But Jonathan, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. It's okay.
Matter.
You know what, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I have let go completely of this year is if my team loses, it doesn't matter. It's okay. I don't have to get all freaked out about it.
It doesn't matter. So I think that's the main thing I'd like to say, is that it's like I can philosophize in therapy myself about this thing all day long, but the bottom line is I want people to know in the end, at the end of your life, everything that every moment you lost to stress and anxiety or anything is like, it doesn't matter. And it's like I have this sense of like, I just want to be the best person I can be, and you know um, hopefully have a positive effect on people's lives, and just be the best person I can. And I live with that feeling of, it's like I tell people that I appreciate them all the time. I mean, even people that I don't even know that well. I I just want it gave me a sense of just wanting to share with people. I want it to matter that I lived, and that I had a positive effect on people's lives, and it gave me a stronger sense that I've always felt that way. And I want to be a good person, but I just I want to have a positive effect on people's lives, and re, however the end is,
Go ahead, Rich.
The way how I feel about it is that I think everything matters. I mean, everything. It it's hard to describe. I have this philosophy that I'm just going to get up each day and do the best I can and be the best person I can be, and try to and be good to other people, to animals, to dog, and I just want to be the best person I can be, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I have no control over it. I have no control. So it's like I think that while we're alive, it's like I think everything matters, but I think when you get to the end of your life, it's like all the things that weighed you down during your life that you let ruin your day. It's like that stuff. It just doesn't matter. I mean, it just doesn't. It's like
Brett, let me give you a take here, because Rich and I have been talking about. We've had several near deaths. My mom was a near death case. She actually died for 7 minutes on the operating table. So I have a long history of this, and I've looked into it. But here's what's hit me with your story, because it is unique. Is your experience was no head whatsoever. It was not up here. All the judgment and the worry was gone, and instead you had the experience of peace, which is in your body. And I think that's what most men don't know how to do, is go from here to here. And in that moment, this got turned off inside of you, and this got turned on, and you had no part in it. You literally were paralyzed, and it was done for you. And I think that's part of the journey as a human being. Is it's very easy to live up here, especially as men, because this is the dominating center of logic and strategy. We've got to watch out the world. We're the protectors. We're the hunters. And the reality is if we live completely up here, we miss out on the rich tapestry that comes here. And I think that's what you got it flipped so dramatically that you got to experience something that most people don't get to experience. Is what does it live like? And this is when we talked to Virginia Drake, who is our other guest on here, Near Death. She said, the afterlife is experienced now by going into your body. That's what she taught us. And you had that experience thrust upon you through paralysis. Like you literally couldn't move your body, and it just went funk. And I think that to me is the lesson here. Now, I don't know if the lesson is even the right word, but like the insight of you got to experience what life is like when you turn the head off and you turn the heart on.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think to myself one of the things when I think about this is like it was like my ego died. That I mean that I can literally say that is one description I can say, is that it felt like my ego was dead, and it felt like my soul let out a huge sigh. That I mean those are two things that I could take away from, because again there was no thoughts. I was just in this state of peace. I didn't think to myself, oh, I'm in a state of peace, this is nice. It wasn't like that. There was no thoughts. I was just at peace. And like I said, I think those are two of the best ways to describe it. Is like my ego died in that time, and it felt like my soul let out a big sigh. It was just like, and so like I said, I think that the thing I can take away from it is the realization is that none of this stuff we fret about while we're alive. It just doesn't matter. Just be the best person you can be, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And because that's all. Really, the only two things we have control over in our lives are the decisions we make and the amount of effort we put into something. That's it. I have control over nothing else except those two things. Mm-hmm. The decisions I make and the amount of effort I put into what I'm doing.
Well, I think a lot of our worries are everything that happens out here and what really matters. Because we're asking the fundamental question, does nothing matter? No, that doesn't feel right. What does matter? And the problem is that we focus so much out here that we miss this matters. What's inside of us, our value. Like you came to peace with yourself. That's a radical experience.
It was extremely radical. Like I said, it's like I've been contemplating it, for 3 years, and it's like, and it's, I don't, there's probably not a day goes by that it doesn't at least cross my mind. I mean, and again, I want to stress, like, I said, I realize that nothing matters. What you said is what I meant. It's not like it's not like our lives are insignificant. It's like, but our lives are significant to the point on the effect we have on other people, good or bad.
I think what really matters is at the core is that we take care of ourselves. You think about that logic. If every human being said, I'm just going to take care of myself so that I am not a harm, and if you can raise that elevation to I'm going to be someone who loves, but even just no harm, the world would be an extremely peaceful place. Yes. And I think that's what we do is we go, let's change all of this out here and not change this. And then we expect it to create peace, and it never will. So we need to flip that logic and say, like you're saying, stop worrying about all that and start just taking care of your own self.
And the thing is, I'm really glad that you guys are having me on, because just talking to you guys about it, it's therapeutic for me. It's like, I've had great conversations with my wife about it. She, but I mean, just to get your guys' perspective, it's like it's therapeutic for me, and I really appreciate this. But it's funny. I was thinking, it's like, the title of your podcast is Life in the Matrix. So funny thing is, like, thinking of contemplating this what happened for the last 3 years. I've gone on tangents where it's like, well, what if I'm just actually in the Matrix, and my turn's over, or I've literally thought of myself as a Sims player, and there's some, and I'm in a game, and somebody's like, controlling me, making me do this and that, or bringing this into my life, and here's a dog, and oh, here's your wife, and it's like I'm part of a game. It's like, I don't believe that, but I've gone down those tangents. It's like, well, what if I am just in the Matrix? And so my son said to me, he goes, well, if that's the case, that means you don't believe in God. And I'm like, oh no, if that's the case, I would believe in God even more, because somebody had to create the Matrix.
So science is really exploding right now in the quantum field, quantum physics world. And there's a construct called unified field. And the unified field is pure energy that has it's basically resonance. It's perfect energy. And there's no dichotomy. There's no split. You take the atom and keep going, down to the rudimentary element. It's called the unified field. I think that's what it is. I think it's exactly what you experience. And I think that's why it becomes so powerful is you experience that energy, and it becomes so, the root word is gnosis, or knowledge. You cannot deny your experience.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not a mental thing that you heard about or saw. Yeah. You felt it.
Yeah. It's an experience that I could have never imagined having. Yeah. It's like, I could have never imagined it. I mean, like I said, it's just beyond words. And again, I want to reiterate, like I did before, it's like, when I say nothing matters, I didn't mean nothing matters, but what you said, Rich, is like, that's what I meant. It's like, and so, yeah,
Brett, what was Leslie's take? I'd be curious, because she was with you through the entire experience. What was her take?
Yeah, she was just, I put myself in their shoes, because they went through a trauma just as much I did, just different, and she was just happy I was alive. I remember I was in they got me in the ambulance, and she had gone in to change, because we were all or swimsuits to follow me to the hospital. And I remember her coming up and squeezing my foot while I was in there, and it's like I could feel that, and it was like the best touch I'd ever felt, because it was my wife touching my foot, and just knowing that, and I think it was shortly after that when I was in the ambulance, I was crying and asking the paramedic if I was going to be okay, because it's like, I knew how much she loved me, and when I was in the hospital there, it was during COVID, because this is in 2021, and so she could only come up for like an hour a day, and she came every day. And then the first day she came in, she crawled into bed with me. I'm laying there in the bed. It's just a single bed, and she just crawled in, just wrapped her arms around me, and I know how much she loves me, and it's like I was just so glad that I didn't die, because I just missed her so much.
For those who we recorded a little bit, but we didn't record our pre-conversation. You and I talked a little bit about Leslie. I want to give a testimony to Brett and Leslie. They have one of the most unique relationships in terms of two people who really belong together. And so part of what you're sharing is that sense of connectedness that you have with your wife.
I agree 1,000%. I agree 1,000%. It's like we tell each other every day. We must tell each other we love each other. Say I love you at least 10 times a day. Almost as many times as I make her laugh. That's another thing, is we make each other laugh every single day. And it's like God could not have. There isn't a person that has ever lived or could ever live that would be more a perfect match for me than that woman. And it's like she's my life. She really is. It's like I love my friends and my family, but my life would just be meaningless without her. And that was one of the things, that I took away from that. It's like it didn't remind me. But it cemented in me how much she means to me. She meant the world to me before that instance. It's just the feeling of just losing, not being with her, and the fact that I still am is I'm so grateful. So that's funny. It reminds me. So that the night I was in the emergency room after they did the MRI and the surgeon had come and gone. So me and my wife have this running joke that so we have this insurance policy, and we have a little arm for it that says there's an extra $150,000 if you die in an accident. And so I'm laying there hopped up on fentanyl, just and it's still in the emergency room, and I said to Leslie, I go, hey, honey, I go, you do realize that would have been considered an accident, don't you? And she goes, too soon. She goes, that's not funny right now. It'll be funny tomorrow. It's not funny right now.
So we've had a guest on here. Her name was Brittany, who really kind of took it to the nth degree from a nihilistic standpoint of nothing does matter. She reached that conclusion and says, I don't find that a valuable journey, but it was an interesting take. And I think that's what we're wrestling with here is how do we find that good middle ground where something matters?
I think, and I've thought about that. I think, I imagine if I was an atheist, it's like, I think to myself, like, then if the atheists are right, in my opinion, nothing does matter. I mean, what's the point? I mean, we're just really smart insects, we're apes, we're monkeys with anxiety. I mean, if God does not exist, then we're just monkeys with anxiety, and nothing really does matter, because why? To what end? It's like, who cares? And so but I think for me, there is an absolute difference between right and wrong, and if there's a difference between right and wrong, then there's good and evil. And there's three reasons I believe in God. One is love is the only thing that really matters. I mean, literally, money, that's the, you get down to the core of it. The bottom line is the only thing that matters is love. Number one. Number two, second reason I believe in God is what I just said, is that I think there's definitely a difference between right and wrong. And aside from my Christian beliefs, which I have, the third reason I believe that God exists is because dogs exist. It's like I can't imagine that chaotic random chance created a loving creature like a dog. It's like that's just I can't imagine that. And it's like I heard this story that it says that dog is spelled the way it is because it's God spelled backwards, and God created them to give us a glimpse of what His unconditional love is like. Mm-hmm. And it's a nice story, but it's like
it just feels right, though. It really does. It's like one of those things about life that feels that way. Well, I think that's the irony of Brett's experience solidified that idea, which is stop worrying about the rest of the world and just take care of yourself. You need you and be at peace with you. And when you do that, and everybody would do that, life would be radically different. It's like, instead of focusing on changing the world, like people they just consume media with this idea that anything can be changed out here. When in reality, where peace begins is it begins inside. And I think that's the matrix. That's leaving the matrix. Leaving the matrix is assuming you can change anything outside of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I completely agree with
that. So Brett, did your near-death experience have any effect on your love for Denver? Because I feel like the tables turned a little bit. I know I'm turning the conversation a little bit, but you and I haven't had that conversation because I'm a massive Raiders fan, and we've actually been better than you lately. But now we both suck. So.
No, for sure. No, the thing is, growing up in Denver, it's like they injected into your blood. I mean, it's like growing up in Denver. So they just become part.
Did I tell you that my wife's mother, her stepmother, was the caretaker for Denver's family?
Oh, really?
Yes, she actually took care of what's the family's name? The Bolin family. Yeah. She took care of the mom, and the dad was the one who owned the family.
Yeah, because they both ended up having Alzheimer's, right?
They did, yes. It was tragic. Tragic story. He was such a great guy. He really made Denver. He really did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And here's my next question for you. Should John Elway stay away from Denver?
He's no longer with them.
So he left finally. Okay.
3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he was general manager, and then they got rid of. He stepped down. I think he realized it's like he had a few bad drafts, and he's like,
just a few.
Yeah, and so then they mortgaged the entire franchise to get Russell Wilson. So they're gonna have to straighten that out at the end of the year, one way or another.
Yeah, you guys are in trouble with that one. Brett, what was the name of the quarterback that was like 6'7" or 6 feet? Brock Osweiler. That's when I knew Denver was in trouble.
Yeah, the thing is that after when Manning retired, they actually offered him a big contract, a big 5-year contract, but he was pissed that he didn't get to play in the Super Bowl because he won the last 4 games of the year for him that year. That he went to the Texans, and then his career is just done. Yeah. Oh, good times.
So Brett, where does life take you now? You're retired, right?
Yep, I've been retired almost 2 years. It's 2 years this month.
And where do you think life is taking you after something like this? Do you think it's just, hey, this is my story to tell, or do you think it's bigger than that? What do you think you do with this?
I don't think it's. I don't think it's bigger than this. I mean, I wouldn't know. It's like I
So it was for you primarily.
Yeah, I relish the opportunity for you guys to give me the opportunity to tell my story. Yeah. I'm very thankful for that. But for me, it's just personal. It's just, it's like, I think, after talking with you guys for the last hour, it's like what you had to say, John, is that I think God gave me a gift.
Mhm.
And it's like, this is what it can be like. He gave me a gift. One, by the experience itself, and two, by bringing me back. And it's like I really believe that, like I said earlier, God doesn't, you know, God lets us have our free will, but I think every once in a while he'll just put his finger on something. He's like, this isn't going to happen today. And it's like I literally imagine God's finger like touching me in the back of the neck and separating those two people. Because otherwise, if they would have stayed collapsed, I would have my diaphragm would have been paralyzed and I would have suffocated. Well, that is what happened. But he just said,
So, Brett, final question, Rich. I'll let you ask one more too. In that moment, you kind of learned a new reality of life. Do you have glimpses of that feeling, or do you feel like
"Oh
it's
yeah,
still there?
I can take when I think about it, I can feel the edges of that feeling. I can't, I can't have that feeling, but I can remember what it feels like, and it feels like I'm on the edges of it. I think everybody should. I mean, I should have that experience. I mean, to feel what it feels like to not have an ego is can be life changing, because, like I said, back in the walking world, it's like I have an ego and things bother me, and but I can take myself to that place. I can remember that situation, and it kind of gives me perspective. It gives me perspective. I would think everybody could benefit from having an experience like this. So we talk about psychedelics, just so you know what it's like. It's like, okay, well, I know I can, what it feels like to not have an ego, and it doesn't mean you don't still have an ego, but if you know what it feels like not to have one, then you can remind yourself of that. I remind myself of that, and it makes me a more sympathetic person, makes me a more empathetic person. I think had those two qualities to begin with, but I think they're
Yeah.
more. I think I, those emotions are deeper in me now. I have more empathy and more sympathy, and I think like you were saying, I think the world would be a better place. I mean, we're all going to have egos, but if you can if you've ever experienced what it's like not to have one, you can remember it, and I think that just be a good thing for anybody. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know. See, I also thought about near death experiences. Is like, I don't know if everybody's is the same. I mean, it's like, I can't imagine.
They're remarkably similar when studied. They are. They're remarkably similar. Like the path of to light, like a tunnel to light, that's like in 85% of all near-death experiences. It's pretty common. You have an exception. That's what makes it unique, is you have an exceptional experience that is not like the pattern, but there's a lot of depth to it. It's not like you just were given some kind of, oh, life is grand and I get to ride a Harley or something. It's like you had something that was profound to your own soul. Well, it also feels very consistent with love. It's like I think the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven or any utopian field that we can create with our mind is perfection personified of love. It's not removal of evil. Evil envelops, love envelops both. It's the yin and the yang becoming at peace with itself. And that's what you've done. You've kind of said, okay, there's a lot of bullshit out there. There's maybe even bullshit in me, but we're at peace. And that's the power of it. It's this experience that gave you profound insight to healing and connectivity. That's when it's really powerful. And I think also, to your point, Rich, is it's not like he's not coming on here to build a platform. It's just to share and process his own story. And what I love about it is it's so specific to you. The story is awesome because you literally have this ironic event to die from, and you made it through it, but you also got this very deep. It's one of the best near death experiences I've ever heard. So it's like the way
It, it definitely it was definitely profound, and I really appreciate you guys letting me on to tell my story. One, it's therapeutic for me to talk to you guys because, you know, Rich, I just met you, but you guys are just very intelligent. John, it's like, through social media, it's like you are such a just awesome person. It's like it comes across. It's like you love deeply, and it's like I love your thing. It's
Thank
like
you. Appreciate that.
you finish your posts with it's like much love, and it's like that's why I'm very thankful to get on and have this conversation with you guys to one to share my story, two to get some feedback from you guys, and three, like I said, just to share my experience in if whoever listens to the podcast, maybe it can give somebody just a little bit of hope, and or just that one it is peaceful in the end, and two, you know, uh, all the stuff you worry about every day, it just none of it matters. It just doesn't. Get up in the morning and you do the best you can,
But
and
we matter. We do
yes,
matter.
yes, yes,
Bullshit doesn't matter. We matter.
of
Yeah,
course,
that's to me is the difference.
yeah.
Yeah,
People matter.
yeah.
It's like all the stuff we worry about. It's like everybody's just like drugs and alcohol and in therapy, and it's like just trying to find a way to just disconnect. It's because they're just so weighed down by life. It's like there's so many depressed people out there, and it seems you don't have to be depressed.
Well, I think a lot of people, most people can fall into the rut of it doesn't matter. Like everything doesn't matter because it feels like that a lot of the time.
Yeah,
And it's hard to stay in a space of it matters. It is that because that is love. It's to say I matter requires a lot of work and energy.
yeah,
And it's hard to do. But when you get an experience like you had, it creates an engine that is extremely powerful, because you cannot ignore for the rest of your life that happened to you.
right. Yeah,
That's painful.
and the thing is that I couldn't ignore it if I tried. Like I said, it crosses my mind in one way or another almost every day. But like I said earlier, it's like one place it really benefited me is the experience is I can take myself back there and remind myself what you're fretting about. It doesn't really matter. Do the best you can. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I mean, it really it's like wake up every day, be the best person you can be, make the best decisions you can, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I mean, that's just the bottom line for me. I mean, that's it. And I just
That's a fantastic way to end it, everybody. So this has been Living in the Matrix. This has been one. Again, we keep blowing ourselves away with these podcast episodes, Rich. It's just like I love these conversations because they're very real about life. I think we find a lot of people that are just want something real. And I think that's the signature quality of this year. I've been kind of unpacking this year on our Instagram channel. So if you follow us on Instagram. I'm starting to share a lot of stuff on there too. What's interesting is everybody has an experience and all they really want is the real. And I think that to me is what is kind of come out of this whole experience. So, all right. So please comment and subscribe. If you don't follow us, we're also on YouTube. And it's been a wonderful year. This is our last podcast for the year. So have a wonderful holidays. Enjoy your family and friends. Here's to a wonderful 2024. It's going to be. I'm projecting that right now. All right. Much love, everybody.